a link there for the Eventbrite, so you guys can go on and start to register for that Connectathon now. So that's the 12th and 13th of December. I haven't seen an agenda for that one, but we'll get that out if it isn't on Confluence already. We'll get that out to everybody as soon as possible.
The official comms will come out from HL7 Australia probably today, so that's still coming.
Awesome. So comms hopefully today, if not sometime this week or next week.
Yep. And there will be an eRequesting track at that Connectathon. So
even better. So eRequesting as well. So everybody here, we expect to see you there. Not joking. Now, there is a discussion point here to have a look at changing the time of the TDG meetings for accommodating for daylight savings. So that will be starting on the 6th of October for ACT, New South Wales, South Australia, Tasmania, and Western Australia. We are, as you all know, meeting at the moment from 11 to 12:30, and there is a proposal just to shift that forward by an hour. So we start the meetings at 12 and we finish at 1:30. And then for Queensland just Queensland will be 11 to 12:30, South Australia 11:30 to 1, Northern Territory is 10:30 to 12, and WA will be 9 to 10:30 in the morning. If we keep it how it is at the moment, it will be 11 to 12:30 for ACT, New South Wales, and Tas as it currently is. Queensland will drop to 10, South Australia to 10:30, Northern Territories to 9:30, and WA to 8 a.m. So we can put forward a proposal to either change the meeting time and move it forward an hour, or leave it how it is now, and we can have an open vote on what that looks like and what everybody's opinions are. But if anybody has anything that they want to say to the group regarding the meeting time, please feel free. If not, then if somebody wants to motion to put this up for a vote from the TDG themselves, then we absolutely can do.
There's a good point there. Victoria got left off that.
That is a good point. Can anybody do the math on the fly?
But Victoria should be the same as ACT, New South Wales, and Tasmania. So that includes Victoria.
Good. So
got left off. And I hope all those times are right. That was my best effort trying to work out what they all were.
I think it looks okay. So Victoria will be on the first row in line with ACT, New South Wales, Tas, and Victoria now on both sides of that. So is there anybody that wants to make a comment about this, or do we just want to go straight to a vote? What are we sort of thinking on this one?
Well, I might just, to get it one way or the other, motion for option 1. Someone wanted to second that. Alternatively, someone has stronger preference for option 2. We can motion that.
Is there anyone from WA here today?
Yeah, my preference is obviously for option 2, being from WA. So yeah. We don't start up until 8:30 usually. So
okay. Well, why don't we go with that?
I think this happened with AU Core originally. When that changed last year, we raised it and that got moved. So yeah.
Okay. Well, how about I'll motion for option 2. Someone wants to second that, and if you prefer option 1, then you would vote negative.
I've made a special poll just for this meeting, so it will be pretty clear as to what they are. Just checking with Danielle really quickly on this vote. Danielle, are we okay to go ahead with this, or does this need to be raised at the next meeting?
Daylight savings? No, I think that's fine. I've been messaging you about a different issue.
Oh, my mistake. Okay, no problem. Thank you. We'll carry on.
No worries.
Cool. So I'm going to push this one as. So you'll see we've got the 3 options. We've got the keep it as it is. We've got it moved to the new proposed time, so option 2. And then we have an abstain as well if you don't want to vote one way or the other. That's completely fine.
Yeah, okay. So it's option 1 is keep it as is. And move it to a new proposed time is option 2, according to this then. Is that what we're going with?
Gonna keep this one a little bit open for a minute here and just let them trickle in.
So for option 2, I'm saying move to a new proposed time.
If you want to vote for option 2, yes, move to the new proposed time.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing because given our time zone, it's actually stay as is for us. But yes, so just pick your region and decide option 1 is top as the
Yep.
first choice, and option
Yep.
2 is the second in the bullet pointed list that you've got.
It made sense when I made the poll, and then we opted for option 1 or option 2, so I apologize.
As the next Sandgroper, I'm voting for Adrian's options.
Thanks.
Cool. I'm going to start to close this now. It looks like we've got most people in here. So we'll call it in 3, 2, 1. And it looks like we'll keep it in line with AEST. So we have 36 of 41%, 36 of 41 people voted. Option 1 was 7 of 36. Option 2 was 24 of 36, and we had 5 abstaining. So it looks like we will be moving to keep it in line with AEST in this instance. So just to clarify, that will mean that the meeting for ACT, New South Wales, Tasmania, and Victoria will now start at 12 p.m. This is after the 6th of October. 11 a.m. for Queensland, 11:30 for South Australia, 10:30 for the Northern Territories, and 9 a.m. for WA. Coming up next, we will be doing the ballot for comment resolution with Michael Wilson. Michael, did you want to share over the top, or are you happy for this?
No, I'll share. Might be
No problem.
All right. I think I need you to stop sharing. Just
Sure thing. There we go.
All right. Entire screen. Share.
Yep, that's all come through.
Hopefully you got that now. Yep.
Yep.
All right, let's get my other window sorted. All right, so the primary focus of this meeting and the future meetings now will be around the ballot for comment resolution for eRequesting. So this is sort of a summary slide that we'll present as we go, show how our progress is going. So the ballot for comment closed. It closed on the 5th of August. It closed on the 8th of September. So we're now in the ballot reconciliation phase. We had a total of 55 JIRA issues raised in the ballot for comment. It was reported by 12 organisations and 16 individuals from those organisations, and there was votes from 10 organisations and 13 individuals. So the important thing is on the right there, which are the kind of stats for us progressing through those ballot for comment issues. So the triage, which is done by the co-chairs, we're nearly halfway through that. We've done about 26 of those issues have been triaged. And we've been able to reconcile 10 of those just through the co-chairs, which are either things that are technical corrections or out of scope and the like. And then the rest of the issues will be coming to the TDG, the ones that once the co-chairs have done that triage, bringing them to the TDG for reconciliation. So we should each week hopefully see these numbers go up significantly until we get through all the issues. We have to reconcile all the issues in the ballot for comment. So we need to work our way through all of those in the coming meetings. So I just want to, given this is the first one we've done in eRequesting, I just want to go back through the responsibilities for the ballot and reconciliation. So the balloters have reviewed the specification, they've raised feedback and voted. So that's all done now. The ballot period is now closed. So we have all our votes and the feedback as part of this ballot for comment. And then the next step is the co-chairs. We're meeting twice a week at the moment to go through these ballot issues, and we're triaging them in JIRA. So essentially between the co-chairs, reviewing them and proposing a disposition, and then they're brought to the TDG, where you get to vote on those dispositions and agree whether they're the changes we want to make to AU eRequesting. So at the end of the process, HL7AU will contact balloters to withdraw votes in JIRA if they accept the resolution on the ones that they've voted negative for. And then this is a ballot for comment, so there's no real pass or fail on this ballot. We're just here to gather feedback, but there's just a bit of closeout on the ballot at the end. So the process the co-chairs are going through in this, so we're reviewing and triaging all the submitted ballot comments. So we're looking at things initially, typographical changes, grammar, spelling, presentation, readability, etc. Editorial, we're determining whether they're editorial or informative. Look at whether they're technical corrections, just like physically technical problems with the IG. Whether they're question and answer, whether there's substantive changes to the IG, whether they're out of scope. So whether they're something that really should be part of AU core or AU base or part of the international spec. So whether things we can actually resolve in eRequesting or not. And except for out of scope, we're then looking at whether the issue is persuasive. It's persuasive with modification, which means we're looking it's a persuasive issue, but it needs some modification before we make the change, or whether it's not persuasive, or it's considered for something, considered for future use, something that we can't look at the moment, but we will look at in a future release. Jump ahead. So this was briefly mentioned before, determining whether things are out of scope or in scope, and this is for eRequesting. So it could be part of the base fire specification, AU base, AU core, AU templates, something else, something that's we can't resolve as part of AU eRequesting. And these are the types of issues that have or can be raised and have been raised in the ballot. So it's a change request, and that's the default choice for voting. For issues that are raised in JIRA. So it's a request for change to the reference specification, and it's more than a technical correction. So and it will be resolved by us, by the TDG, to determine whether we make that change or not. The technical correction is minor change to the specification that does not impact the behaviour of conformant applications. Includes corrections to spelling, grammar, errors with propagating name changes of elements within the spec, and formatting issues. Now the co-chairs can approve those and get those changes made without having to bring them to the TDG, because they don't impact the behaviour of the specification. So they're minor issues. Questions? I don't think we got any of those in this ballot, but that's not anticipating any change, but it seeks clarification, an aspect of it. And then comments, commentary about the specification. There's not expected to result in a change to the specification or any response at all. So they're the types of issues that we'll see as we go through them. The co-chairs, as part of their triage, will prioritise the issues, making sure that critical are resolved in this cycle. So they're prioritised to make sure we look at the critical ones first. We assign action owners the next step, so working out who's going to look at the dispositions and the response. We're organising them into categories. So if we can do, we can group them together. So we can do a block ballot, an e-vote, which I'll talk about more a bit later. And we go through any of the ballot comments requiring dispositions and discussions. And then we prepare the preliminary reconciliation package, and that's distributed to the TDG. So you would have seen an email come out a week ago. We want to make sure that the TDG has a week to look at them before we bring them to a meeting. So there was an email sent out last Thursday, which had the ones that we're going to go through in this meeting. So that's the pattern we'll follow, where you'll get the issues we're going to discuss in the next meeting the week before. So you've got time to look at it, determine your position, so we know what we're talking about when we come into a meeting. So TDG members, so this is your role here. So your role is to review the comments provided, including the dispositions, and decide what changes, if any, will be made to the specification as a result of the comment. So, so you're responsible for reviewing the reconciliation package, attending these calls, and voting on those dispositions to determine whether we make the change or not. So the co-chair's responsibilities are organising and processing ballot comment dispositions through the electronic vote, conference calls, or other meetings. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing them to these meetings or preparing electronic votes for the TDG vote on. For any ballot comments with an indication of in-person, we'll make sure we'll contact the submitter and make sure that they're available for any of the conference calls where it's being discussed. We're going to notify, I've just mentioned, we notify the TDG members a week before about these calls, and we'll send those out. So also for the ballot comment disposition conference calls, we'll be giving workgroup members and submitters the option to pull any from a block vote. So I'll talk more about block votes later. We'll go through ones that we're going to talk about this meeting, but then I'll come back into what we can do with our block votes. And then at the end of this, we'll record the agreements, dispositions, and voting outcomes in the meeting minutes. So that at the end of this, it's like anything else we've been voting on TDG, we'll record those outcomes as to what the outcome of the vote was on each of the issues. These are the dispositions, so the resolutions we can pick from when we're resolving issues in the ballot. So considered for future use. So this is where the work group, the TDG here, has reviewed the proposal and don't wish to make a change in the current release of the specification, but will consider making change in the future version of the specification. Persuasive is the proposed change will be made more or less as proposed. Well, it's on the more side, as proposed. Persuasive with modification. So a change will be made to specification that addresses the issue identified, but is notably different from the one proposed. Resolution description indicates the change that will actually be performed. So we'll quite often use that one, the persuasive modification, because the issue doesn't describe the resolution exactly. It'll often describe the intent or the outcome that is wanted. And so we would propose a persuasive modification to say, well, this is the exact change we're going to make. So everyone understands the exact changes that are going to be made. Not persuasive. So this is no change will be made to specification. So the resolution description will indicate why. It may be because the work group disagrees with the submission or because the issue can't be addressed within the specification. And the next one's a bit interesting. It's not persuasive with modification, which means the work group disagrees with the issues raised. That's the same as not persuasive. Will not make the requested change, but will make some sort of change to the specification, generally to provide more clarification. So that's where we're not making the change, but we're making something to clarify for the issue. David, you got a question?
Oh, yeah, thanks for that. So I guess I'm battling with that word persuasive. And what exactly it's more than a change request though, isn't it?
So this isn't based on the type. So there would be a change request. And then this is the resolution we're assigning to the change request. So we're saying that the issue raised in JIRA was raised as a change request. Us as the working group, the TDG, will say that it's either persuasive or not persuasive, the request for that change.
So that's what I mean. So what do you mean by persuasive or not persuasive?
So that's whether the TDG as a whole, the work group, agrees that the change that's been raised is something we should do or shouldn't do, right? So it's that issue that the TDG has been persuaded and said, yes, that is a change that we want. Or the TDG is going to say, no, don't think that change should apply.
Right. So we're being encouraged to consider this change request.
Absolutely, yes. Okay. That's right. So they've been raised, and then us at the TDG are looking at it and saying, yes, that's a good idea. We like that change, or no, don't think we should make that change for each of those issues. Daniel, I saw you pop in. Do you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I do think you summed it up nicely. It's just flat persuasive says that both the change itself and the argument behind it is persuasive. Because we're coming down to the not persuasive and not persuasive with modification, where they do like to capture some specific differences to represent the discussions and where we're making changes and whether or not we're agreeing with the argument proposed as to why to make the change. So persuasive is indeed we agree with the change proposed, we're going to make a change, and we agree with the argument. And persuasive with modification is that we agree with, we generally agree a change is required and we generally agree with the argument, but there is some substantive thing there. Maybe we're changing the text, like, yes, we agree there needs to be a change, but in fact, this is the text that the technical design group has agreed is the necessary thing that will happen.
And that initial disposition is what the co-chairs are doing as part of the triage. So that's where we're having a look and using our experience thinking, yeah, it's persuasive or not persuasive, but ultimately the decision lies with the TDG. So that's why we'll bring them in these meetings or to electronic votes. We'll present it to the TDG. TDG gets to provide your input. You get to vote and say, yes, I agree it's persuasive or not. So it's all part of our normal governance process.
So I guess that's right. So you decided it's not persuasive. No, we're not going to do that. Thanks for sharing, but sorry, we're not going there. But then the next one with I'm saying no with a modification.
We're still going to make a change to the specification because of this issue, but it's not addressing the issue that's role. It is one I struggle with a bit too, right?
Yeah, no, fair enough.
But I think it's there's a related change or something that'll help clarify it so that maybe it makes it easier to understand why it's this context or whatever it happens to be. So because ultimately to make a change to the specification, we need it to go through the TDG, right? So this is a way of saying, well, we still want to change, but we're just not going to change what they asked for.
Probably the most common one for that is where we still believe the content is correct, but we can see that the clarity of the material just wasn't clear enough to present the argument. So we don't intend to actually change what the profile is doing, but we are adding some material or guidance to further explain to the user why this is what's necessary. So that's not persuasive with modification.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, thanks.
The last two there, one's just duplicate. So we might have had the same issue or raised by multiple people within the ballot for comment. And so we will address one of those and the other one will be a duplicate. So we can just close it out as a duplicate and then retracted. The submitter has closed their own issue prior to resolution. So it's been removed.
And just to come back to duplicate, just for if anyone has raised an issue and it's marked as a duplicate, what it means is all the resolution and the voting will occur on the other one. So it still will either be marked ending with persuasive or not persuasive and so forth. It's just that we're capturing that decision on one of those and it automatically applies to the other that is marked duplicate.
Yeah, thanks. Good point. Any other questions on that before I move on? We can, as we go, if you want to, given this is our first meeting doing this, definitely ask questions on what we're doing as we go. So you don't have to sit there quietly, definitely speak up because so we can all learn about it as we go through this process. So that brings us to our first set of issues that we're bringing to the TDG. Like I said, these have been through co-chair triage, and we've got some proposed dispositions here, and I'll walk you through those, and we'll bring them to vote in this meeting. So the first issue here, I will try and launch into my browser. So for those who haven't had a look through Jira before, this is all the issues are in Jira. we've got the issue number here, which is in the link here. It's also in the URL. We've got the brief description of the issue. So this one's eRequesting service request or eRequesting diagnostic service request. So that's the description of the issue or the title of the description. Down the bottom here, we've got the description of the issue that was raised. So in this case, it here says, should this profile be eRequesting diagnostic service request rather than eRequesting service request, given it is a profile of AU-based diagnostic request? So that's the issue that was raised. You can see who reported on the right. It was Andy. Andy raised this one. You can see some information in the top here. There's a related URL, which is about, it's related to the issue, which page it relates to, what section it relates to. And then we've got under here the resolution description. So this is part of co-chair triage. We've identified what we think could be the resolution description here. So in this case, it says accept the change as the profile is specific to the diagnostic use case. And the change is rename the profile eRequesting service request to eRequesting diagnostic request. You'll see up here the resolution in this case is persuasive with modification. Right. So this is with modification because I think in here, should this profile be called eRequesting diagnostic service request? What we're actually saying in the resolution is that it would be called eRequesting diagnostic request, not diagnostic service request. I just might walk you through this. We'll follow this link to what we're talking about. So this is our profile AU requesting service request. I might actually just take a step back. We'll go to profiles, extensions. So in our eRequesting IG, under service request, we had a generic profile, which is currently called AU eRequesting service request. And then we have specific use case ones for eRequesting imaging request and eRequesting pathology request. So this change is around the base one, which is the eRequesting service request. You'll see it inherits from AU-based diagnostic request. So this is what the issue is talking about. In AU-base, we have a AU-based diagnostic request profile. Our AU eRequesting service request profile is inheriting from that AU base. So going back to the change was, should this profile be called eRequesting diagnostic service request rather than eRequesting service request, given it as a profile as diagnostic request. So what we're adding is the context that this is a diagnostic generic service request rather than just an entirely generic service request. So our proposal is to rename the profile eRequesting service request to eRequesting diagnostic request. And I can see a problem with that already. We're missing AU off this. So I'm going to look to make that change while we're here. So we can change the profile from AU eRequesting service request to AU eRequesting diagnostic request. Does anyone got any questions about that change? Anyone not quite understand what we're talking about or got any concerns about that change? Hopefully it's a reasonably straightforward one for us to start with. So if there's no questions, I'd like to motion that we accept this disposition as persuasive with modification. We're accepting the change. We're going to rename the profile AU eRequesting service request to AU eRequesting diagnostic request. I'll make that motion if someone wants to second it.
Jenny Whale, happy to second.
Thanks.
Yeah, Jojo Mong from ACT, also happy to second as
well. Stuart, you're able to launch a poll?
No, actually, I can't.
Is that because I'm sharing or something?
No, it says that we've got one already active for some reason.
Yeah, I think somebody who raised the initial one, if you can see it on your screen, click back. I think there's like a back at the top or a... So it will display the current one until you end it. And then you've got to click near the top of the screen. There should be a back in like a breadcrumb.
I think we're good now. I'm going to push it through. Let me know if this comes up.
Yep, that's available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to change the proposed resolution while we're here, Michael?
I did.
You did? Oh, yes, perfect. Sorry.
All right, I'll start to wind this down now. So 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll put that through so everyone can see. We've got 30 of 40 people voted, 75%. 25 of 30 voted in the affirmative, nobody in the negative, and 5 of 30 abstaining. So the motion has carried.
Okay, good job, everyone. We've done our first ballot resolution vote. Okay, I'll jump to the next one, which is kind of related. Okay, so this one is around making the base request abstract. And in the description we've got here, given we include no examples of alternative requests other than path and rad, I propose making the common base service request spec abstract at this point in time, as no other uses are currently in scope. So that's back here on the same profile we were just talking about. So this base service request, the proposal is to make that abstract, which means you wouldn't use it in any case. You can, it's only that the AU request and imaging request and pathology request will inherit from it, but we will not use it for any use case, as we currently don't have any use case for a generic request. So it would be tagged as abstract and not intended to be implemented. Get to the right. Right, too many screens open. Definitely too many screens open. This one. So the proposed oh, sorry, Brett, do you want to talk?
Oh, only just that would make it that anything other than imaging or pathology requests are not able to be represented with this spec at this point if we make this change. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
So the proposal at the moment, the proposed resolution is persuasive. And the resolution description we've got in here is make AU requesting service request profile abstract, as there is no use case or intent to instantiate this profile. Add abstract flags, the definition, remove search parameters from profile notes, remove as supported profile from capability statements, and update profile specific implementation guidance, and note that this is an abstract profile. Andy?
I was just going to add that this doesn't constrain you from also inheriting from this abstract class or abstract profile and building something other than imaging and pathology requests. And then at some stage, this might come back into the eRequesting spec if our scope then is expanded to cover other requesting approaches or more specific pathology or imaging types.
David?
That was good to hear, I guess. Because I guess that's where I was imagining there's going to be requests for all sorts of stuff. But what I just heard from Andy is that we can still leverage the pattern.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So I might just talk about some of these changes we've got here as well. So currently in the capability statements, I'll show you for probably the server one's the easier one to talk to at the moment. So in the AU requesting server capability statement, we have a section here on service request. And in here, it's the sort of supported profiles that we'd expect a server to support for service request. And currently this has the AU requesting service request, the path, and the imaging profiles. So what we do is take out of this is that we're not expecting the server to support the base requesting service request. It will only support the path and imaging service requests. But the base service request is still part of the IG. We're just, like I said, this IG can be used to reference if you want to create your own profiles, but it wouldn't be part of the capability statements we'd expect to be implemented as part of AU eRequesting, right? So it's something we can revisit again in the future if there is a generic use case that we want to apply here. But at the moment, we're not. We for release 1 of eRequesting, we only have those 2 use cases for pathology and imaging. So there is no use case at the moment for a generic. So that's the proposal here. Are there any other questions or comments or anything about that?
Yeah, I just want to check there, Michael, that I understood what Andy was saying as well. So it's Paul here from Clan William. So essentially, once we bring in other use cases here, once we have use case 2 and 3, then we'll revisit essentially the need for an abstract base request. Yeah,
I think to me that it not being abstract is because there is a generic use case that we're applying. We're expecting it to apply, and whether that's actually this base or there is another profile created for that use case is something we'd have to visit on a use case by use case basis.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think we are currently implementing against a diagnostic service request profile in AU base, which is restricted as well to diagnostics. So there is a ticket in AU base at the moment to look at that, and maybe we need to have just a general service request AU base profile that's more general, which would probably cover some of those other cases that are not diagnostic related activities. So I think this needs a bit of work as well in terms of clarifying that. Yeah.
And that was also related to the change we just made in the previous one about renaming this. So it isn't just generic service request. So it is diagnostic. So to help clarify that. Okay. Well, I'll make a resolution that I propose that this is persuasive. With that resolution description that we've got there, that we will add the abstract flag to the profile, we'll remove it from the capability statements, and we'll update the profile specific implementation guides that it's an abstract profile that's not intended to be instantiated. Does anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Yep. Do what's on the button now. Straight up.
couple more seconds. There's still a few votes trickling in. All right, that seems to have calmed. So we'll close in 3, 2, 1. And we have 29 of 41 people voted, 23 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, and 4 abstaining. So the motion carries.
All right. Move on to the next one. 46846. So this one's around service request category. Should have a cardinality of 1 to 1. And the description here is, can't see a reason why we would want multiple categories for the request. It is either pathology or radiology or a more specific code thereof. So let's have a look at what we're looking at here. And we are looking at ServiceRequest.category. So this element here, this is on that base service request profile, both pathology and imaging inherit from. So we've currently got category here as a one-to-many, which is a codable concept. And I'll just show how that is implemented in our other profiles. Tab. So if we have a look in imaging and we have a look in pathology. So in imaging, we have a slice with it being imaging and a fixed value here of imaging, and the same for pathology. We have a slice for path with fixed code assigned to that as well. So looking back at the base profile, having a category, I'll just jump on there, jump to the definition of that as well. There we go, category. Category, yeah, there's no description there. Interesting.
It'll be because you're on the differential view and you're inheriting the description
right.
from the fire standards.
Yeah. So if I go back.
So if you go back to content and I guess you just change the profile.
Yeah, I just go to the snapshot.
Okay.
Category. Now I just need to find it. Category. If I click on it there, that take me to the right one. There we go. Category. So a code that classifies the service for searching, sorting, and displaying purposes. Says here there may be multiple access of categorization depending on the context of use case for retrieving or displaying the resource. The level of granularity is defined by the category concepts in the value set. So I think back on this is our use case. I'll find the issue back here. That I don't think we have any use case for multiple categories. We're only talking about imaging or we're talking about pathology. Oh, sorry, Heath, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about V2 messages. We have a diagnostic service category in the OBR. I'm just think it's too soon to lock this down. As long as there's a mandatory one on pathology, I don't see why we can't allow someone to say more specifically what kind of pathology that the order might be relevant to. I know it's a little bit tricky that perhaps the order doesn't always know, but if they do know, I don't see why we would lock this right down to 1-to-1 at this point in time, as long as the pathology or imaging is mandatory, as the slice already supports.
What would be the obligations on those other codes so that anything else came through?
No obligations.
For a filler example.
Just basically allowing the placer to be able to send through something other than pathology or imaging. I just don't know why we're locking it right down at this point without implementation experience.
Ram?
This isn't specifically my use case, but I just think from memory, wasn't the reason it's multiple because there was a couple of tests where you could have imaging and pathology in the same thing where you're like, give me an image and some path data, and it's kind of one bundle. Wasn't that the like original reason we did that with the multiple?
I wouldn't expect that. They would be different service requests, I would have thought, that particular use case. I'm thinking like it's pathology, but it's microbiology or cytology or whatever.
So using multiple for specification rather than providing one hyper-specific code and forcing you to go search the hierarchy tree.
Yeah, it's if you want to be more specific than just laboratory. So having a second category to be more specific.
I agree with Heath. I don't know the great use case, but I agree with there's no need to lock it down. You must have one of the other two and not both of them. If you want to add microbiology or hematology in there, I've got nothing against that. I'm not quite sure the use case, but I agree with not trying to lock it down for some unknown reason.
Andy?
I'm okay with that as long as we, in the constraint, ensure that at least one of the broader category is included. Then if there are additional codes, I don't think that's an issue, but as long as we've got that in
not both.
Not both, and that you have at least included one.
So doesn't our slicing do that for us? So with this on the
slice mandates one.
Yeah, so it's mandating.
It does not, prevent the other one from being present. But that could be done via an invariant, yes. If that's a rule that we want to introduce. So yes, you must have, in this case, here the one for pathology. We could also introduce it, and then you could have others. But we could also introduce a rule that says those others can't be the known magic code for imaging.
I think that's going to be really challenging to put a constraint on that because we are talking SNOMED codes here. So you can't say only one from SNOMED. So as you say, the only way you could potentially do it is say not imaging, but then you've probably got this growing forever problem when we go beyond just imaging and pathology of not this, not that, etc. So I think common sense needs to prevail here. If someone goes through and says, oh, there's a category of imaging and pathology, that's just ridiculous.
I agree. And for me, I don't use this to make the split because because I ask for orders for my organization, and my organization is a pathology organization. If you want to send a radiology order to it, we'll struggle, but we don't use this to make the split.
David?
Yeah, thanks. I guess when I was first looking at this, I was looking at the mandatory and then saying, well, if you're going to enforce this on me, give me a list of values that you'll accept. And maybe we can control things that way. And then the other side of me goes, well, you're right. We are trying to classify something, give it a category. And we know in data that that's just a recipe for complex hierarchies of stuff, and whose category are you talking about? So I guess I'm sort of imagining too that if you did want to specify what type of pathology you were giving or requesting, that could be used as well, because then you would know it's a pathology anyway. So it doesn't matter what level of detail you say, whether this is just a pathology request or this is, check the results of this particular test or something.
Is there a use case for fillers to use the additional information, right?
I don't know of one.
Because we're saying we're going to support other, but if it's
so
not
in your
going to be used,
V2 at the moment, sorry, Michael, in your
Yeah.
V2 at the moment, Angus, so you're not using that diagnostic service, or you're not section?
No, it's heavily used in results, and that's why it's it's in OBR, I think 24, 5 or something.
Yeah.
But it's primarily used for results going back. It's us saying this is a hematology result, this is a micro result. Orders coming in, like we don't care what you think it is. You're ordering a code, and we're going to do it in one of our departments. Now, if you tell me it's meant to be done in some other department, I really don't care. I'm doing it in microbiology because I'm the provider,
places providing a value in that at the moment? You don't know.
I don't know.
You don't care.
Yeah, we don't use it. If they did, we're just ignoring it. My gut feeling is they're not, because it'd be, who are they to say? Like they don't really care, right? They want to order an MSU. They don't care to tell us it's for micro or hematology, and in a lot of tests they wouldn't know.
Isn't it more relevant to radiology, where the modem of the form of radiology? Because some companies may not provide all types, so it's much more important if it's an MRI or CT scan compared with an X-ray or ultrasound. So I think it's much more applicable in radiology than pathology.
Yeah, that's very true, but we also have it in the order code, don't we? Like the RRV says CT brain, and then it would be correct to put CT here as well. So radiology CT, but it's also in the order code. So it's a very good point.
I think maybe we're going down a rabbit hole, though. I mean, in terms of ballot reconciliation for the issue raised, I think we're starting to explore and consider other things, and I think we should just come back in. And based on our discussion, I think from what I've seen there is the general discussion seems to be, look, it's fine to have, as long as we've got this fixed one, it's fine to have others, maybe we ignore them. So in that case, we'd be saying, actually, this is non-persuasive. That it is, in fact, yes, intentionally allowed for more specific codes to be available, although that's actually what was written in the description, which said either pathology or radiology or a more specific code. But in our case, we're saying, look, it's non-persuasive. We don't want to make a change. We want to keep it as is, noting that the only more specific codes allowed would be those, under pathology or radiology.
If that description is wrong, like it can't be or, it's and. If it is either pathology or radiology and a small specific code.
Well, it could be another coding system as well. But again, I think the fundamental objection that I have is that we're locking this right down to something that is intended to allow people to provide multiple categories for whatever use case that we don't know yet. That's really the key for me. And I think we're just being a little bit too restrictive at this very early stage of things. Certainly say mandatory is pathology or imaging. I have no problem with that, but to block out any other possible thing in the future, otherwise we're going to have to undo it in the future.
And I guess can I add just one more thing? I guess from my data architecture brain, the category here is about the event, right? It's about the request. It's not about what I'm requesting. I'm not trying to classify what this is the kind of request I got. You want more details, then look at the thing I'm requesting, and that'll tell you more details.
Anyway, I'm with Heath, and I think the problem of them setting it to both pathology and radiology, I think someone said common sense, and I kind of agree. I think if that's hard for us to put it in variant, we just accept it would be odd to do. And I agree with Heath. Allow other codes in here as long as you have one of these.
So just in the interest of time then, is anybody happy to make a motion with how it sits now, or do we want to bring this back for a different conversation another day?
Can I motion that it's non-persuasive? Is that
Okay,
allowed?
and is anybody going to second on Heath?
Yeah, I second.
Okay, with a second from Angus, fantastic. So look, we'll put it up for a vote with a non-persuasive. We'll see what the group says, and then if we need another discussion on this another day, we always can. All right, so that should be up on everybody's screens now.
Yep. So this vote is saying that it's non-persuasive.
Correct. All right, that seems pretty stable. So we'll close that off now. And I'll push that through. So we had 33 of 39 votes, 19 in the affirmative and 14 abstaining. There were no negatives on this one. So the motion carries for it to be non-persuasive.
That's good. I think that's a good show of process there too. So the co-chairs had gone through and triaged that and picked one side of the fence. But the TDG and discussion has decided something different, which is exactly what we want. We want to make sure that this is by consensus. So that shows our process is working. Danielle, just for the resolution description, we'll just update that based on the minutes from today's meeting. Is that right with that?
Yes.
Yeah, we
And
don't have
for
to
all the
agree on the
Jira
exact text.
issues, there will be a link. So there's some automation in between Jira and Confluence. So if we do that correctly with having the Jira there, there will be a link to every meeting minutes that this item has been like discussed and voted on. So that will be there as well, the record.
Okay, great. All right, jump to another one. Okay, so this is about rewording our patient access actor, and the description down the bottom here is, given we don't call the placer actor AU eRequesting placer create, we should call this actor AU eRequesting patient. And a system that is a digital interface that allows patients or their representatives to view and manage requests for diagnostic services, provides access to request information, enabling patients to choose service providers and track status. So looking at rewording that as well to a system that allows patients or their representatives to view diagnostic requests and fulfillment of diagnostic requests. And saying here, this does not enable choice and is not about tracking the requests, even though you're much more likely interested in fulfillment status. So I might just jump over to show what we're talking about again. So these are our actors that we've identified for eRequesting with our placer, filler, server, and the one we're talking about here is the AU eRequesting patient access, which is a client system. The description we had here, that's the one we're talking about. It's digital interface allows patients, their interface or representatives to view and manage requests, provides access to information. So I think the main issue here was the word access on the end of it, because we don't say it's a placer is a create, and a filler is a read, or a server is a read write, whatever else. It's just simplifying the description. This is also defined in our artifacts under actor definition. So this is the source of truth for our actor definitions, where they're each defined here. So again, we're talking about our patient access actor. And we have under our capability statements, we have a capability statement for each of our actors. So here's our patient access capability statement. And it talks about being able to search for service requests and the like. So this change would change everywhere that we reference your eRequesting patient access. So across capability statements, actor definitions, the descriptions on the home page, everywhere along there. Jane?
Yeah, I'm just concerned because with the patient, often it will not be the patient themselves. It'll be a carer or an appointed other person. And
Yeah.
I think that having that patient access actually enables that.
The description will
Or
say here
invites it.
patients or their representatives. So a system allows patients or their representatives to view docs. So that will still be in the description for the actor to highlight that it's the patient or their representative. David?
Yeah, but I guess the point is that it's either one or the other. I know the individual is one or the other.
Mm.
You're trying to recognize what role I'm playing. So I'm not playing the patient role. I'm playing the I guess the authorized patient person or something like that.
But what we're actually playing in this case, it's the system. So it's not even the patient themselves. It's the system that's being used by the patient or their representative.
Oh, so, sure, but it still has the system is playing the role, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Is what no, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go back to the diagram if I've got it here. So on this diagram, these are systems, right? So in this case, with the eRequesting patient access, if we were to extend this diagram out to the left here, would be the actual patient or the representative who is using that system to then access the information.
Sure, but I guess what we were trying to do is come up with a label to recognize that these are all the privileges you can do in this role. And it doesn't matter whether you're authorized or the patient, it's you get to do all these things.
It's really the role of that system, not even down to that. It's so we will have as part of our capability, as part of our obligations. For example, let's go to our service request. So for our obligations for our actors, for example, for each of the elements that we have on a profile, we will say, for example, we've got the patient access. When it gets one of these service requests, it shouldn't error. We actually don't have any specific obligations on what the patient access actor should do. We're basically saying how it implements it's up to that system, but we're just basically saying you should be able to understand, actually not error if you get any of these must support elements. Whether you display it, whether you do something else with it, is entirely up to you. We're just saying when you're processing one of these resources that you shouldn't error if you get anything that we've defined in here as a must support.
Access looks funny in there.
And there's a capability statement for this actor, which talks about what this system needs to do. So it needs to be able to at the moment, support searching of service requests and being able to search by ID or requisition, and should support these other resource types, which we haven't actually defined all the requirements in those yet. There's some other Jira issues that have been raised in the Ballot comment that will address some of those, and talks about how it is. So it is very much about the system, what the system capability needs to be.
And as the system capability can do it, but because I'm in this role, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm in the patient authorized role, so I'm either authorizing my own stuff or I'm the carer for someone else.
Yeah,
I've logged into the system. The system says, "Oh, there's David." Now is he talking about himself, or is he?
So what we're doing at the level higher than that. So that, for example, that we're going to say that the patient access role, sorry, I've got too many windows open, can search on the eRequesting server for service requests, right? They can't create service requests. They can't update service requests. They can't. They can only, so we're talking that next level up at the moment, right? Which is about what interactions that system can have with other actors, other system actors. So they'll never create a service request, for example, right? Because that's not the role of the patient access system. It's to search for and find service requests.
I guess the clash here is that eRequesting placer, eRequesting filler aren't referring to an individual, right? It doesn't say eRequesting doctor or eRequesting pathologist. So it's sort of like a group, you know, a placeless group of entities and a filler group of entities. And yet when we get to eRequesting patient, we've said patient, which makes us all think, oh, it's the patient and only the patient. But we really kind of mean it in a grouping sense with the patient's group of people.
I think that was the intent of the original access on the end of it too, really saying it's the system that enables the patient to access the service request. It's not the patient themselves, as in this actor.
I think the word access plays an important role.
What if in the future we want to give this actor rights to modify something? So now they're not just accessing it. I'm not suggesting we're going to do that now, but by saying access, we're limiting that role to not modify it. Like in the future, if we go, oh, they can update their patient details, well, not through that actor role, because it's just about access. Now we have to create another role called eRequesting patient modification, or we have to remove the word access from this one. I think access is actually limiting our future scope, saying it's now defining that the patient role can access, and nothing else. And you know, that's limiting our future scope.
Well,
and
even
we do it today.
Even kind of before even that, you know, why wouldn't we then call AUE requesting filler access, given it's only got a read capability on a service request? Do you overlay that into filler as well? I guess what I was trying to make sure is that we had a balanced set of actors and actor kind of specifications, and the patient one is kind of different than the other two, because we're not overlaying the right within the name as we are with patient.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say that access is not the focus of what the patient wants to do, but likewise, we're not explicitly saying that from a filler's perspective, you know, reading service requests is the focus of what they do.
Now, I understand too that, like, by having this as patient, like Angus said, that we don't say doctor or something in the others, that it is always going to be a system actor. These are only system actors. When never talking about individuals in these, they're systems. Whether with that context of it being a system, whether AUE requesting patient is okay, or whether we do need to come up with something else to substitute for the access. We're happy with access, I think. Are there any other suggestions? Does anyone else have any other thoughts on what we could?
I guess I'm thinking that because we're doing a lot of reading right now, right? And that's why we're saying it's all about reading and all about reading. And if we say, okay, eventually we're going to update or we're going to create ourselves, then the definition of the role might have to change, because I think we still would want to see a role that does read only. And I guess so it's almost like I'm AUE requesting, patient read. It's the read side of it only, because if I'm not going to give everyone update,
The thing is, this
The filler also does an update. So should we change that to AU eRequesting filler access?
Geez, I wish we were in the same room. Throw whiteboard markers at each other.
Sorry, I think I dropped out there for a little bit.
I can't think of another, like placer
Yeah.
and filler aren't individuals. I can't think of, eRequesting subject, yuck, eRequesting consumer, yuck. I think
it's the authorized person, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah. eRequesting authorized person is still
Authorized patient.
vague.
Yeah.
I like patient. I think we can't, at this technical level, you can't take it literally to mean the individual. I mean, we have a description that says the patient and their representatives. You could call it eRequesting viewer, but then you're limiting that they only view.
Yeah, it's almost like it's an authorized patient, but it's not. Yeah.
I don't want to call it eRequesting patient / representative, because it's getting wordy, even though that's the intent.
Yeah. The joy of data and coming up with the right names.
Yeah, I think you need to leave it on the description of the actor role. Because even a placer, I think someone's going to go, oh, what does that mean? Well, you have to read the description.
Yeah, no, but you see, most people won't read the description, and I guess that's why I always like to have a good noun to them say, oh, that's not just patient.
If we just use patient and leave the access off and then put a star next to it, because it is actually different than a filler and a placer. The patient by its name is actually an actually quite a complex category of those who have rights to access on behalf of or directly from a patient. And that's, I think we're all saying it's too wordy to get the nuances into a single word. It's just not going to work. So we need some way of calling people out. And I agree, if people just see patient without any accoutrement, they're going to just think we're only referring to the patient. So that would not allow someone to be acting on behalf of a patient. They would be out of scope. But I think if we can somehow footnote whatever in that word, just to say this is actually bigger than the patient.
Yeah, because it's something we're going to use again and again.
Yeah, I think although it is, again, it's only the system, right? And we did originally have this as patient access, right? It was always described as the patient and their representative, right? So I think the intent of this change, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, though, was around the concern around the access part of it, saying that we were constraining the actor to access only, and we weren't constraining any other actor to what they could do based on the name of the actor.
Yes.
So that's the intent of this change. It doesn't mean we don't make another change later about something else. But I think the intent here is just about removing the word access so that we're not constraining this actor.
I agree with that. We can still have an open discussion, like should it be called patient, but I think maybe we can agree access shouldn't be on the end.
Yeah, I think that's the issue that was raised, and what we're looking to resolve here. But that doesn't mean we can't make other changes in the future. David?
This is just a suggestion. My personal view is that patient is still the best word, even though sort of acknowledging all the issues that have just been discussed. A noun that's used in some other health contexts is client. And I know that there will be some people who don't like that word for other reasons, but client, I think, captures that idea of it being potentially more than just the person receiving the treatment.
It is, we have actually in the diagram put client in here because these are client systems, and now there's a server system. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that being client supportive or otherwise?
I think it's pretty important to have the word patient in there, because that is the focal point for this. What we're, I think, more trying to imply is that the patient may be part of this through an incremental kind of staging or step. I don't know.
I motion we call it e-requesting patient and drop access.
I agree. I think patient's the most sensible word, but I'm putting an alternative out there.
Well, that's what's the current. So it's probably good. We're nearly out of time in this meeting, so probably good that we actually have that vote. Sorry, I'll just get the right window up here. So this
is there a second for Angus's motion?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Andy seconds. Thank you.
I'll just go through and clarify what we're voting on there. So this issue is persuasive with modification. So the Patient Access Act reword, and the modification is we'll change the title of the actor from AU e-requesting patient access to be AU e-requesting patient. The flow-on effect of that is that description needs to be the description will be changed as well. The system allows patients or their representatives to view diagnostic requests and fulfillment of diagnostic requests. We need to change the title and capability statements. So everywhere else that's referenced, we're going to make all those changes as well. And the other places where the description are as well will also impact the actual URL of the capability statement. So we'll be dropping access from all of those. So that's what the resolution will be. Persuasive modification with those changes.
All right, that's on its way out. All right, that seems pretty stable. So we'll wind this down. 3, 2, 1, and we'll call that there. So pushing the results out, we had 28 of 37 votes, 17 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, 9 abstaining. So the motion carries. And then I think we have a couple more slides left, and then we'll get this wrapped up for everybody for the day.
Yeah, we're nearly out of time. So the last one wasn't actually one we wanted to vote on. This was one that co-chairs decided we should bring to TDG to talk about. I'll go through it really quickly now, but we'll carry it over to a future meeting. It's just to introduce it to you. So this talks about the requisition assigner and display should be optional. Currently, a requisition uses AU local order identifier profile, which has an assigner and display is mandatory. Assuming the system URIs are properly structured and unique, the need for mandatory assigner is not necessary. Recommend change the assigner and display to 0 to 1. I'll see if I've got the right page here. So got too many windows open, but under service request, we have the requisition, which is of type AU local order identifier. This is actually identified in AU base. So if we do want to make this change, we'll push it through to AU base, but we need to work out whether it's actually changed we think we need for eRequesting. So in the definition of AU local order identifier, what this is talking about is the assigner and the display. So the organization be assigned the order identifier, and specifically the name of the assigning organization being part of that local identifier. So that's what we'll talk about when we come to whether we think that should be optional and you shouldn't have to provide a reference to the organization and the display of that organization as to who this identifier was created from. But we won't go through that today. Just highlighting we'll talk about it in a future meeting. We don't have a disposition on this at the moment. Just it was going to raise whether the TDG thinks this is a change that is important, and we should make or not. So, but I might just hand back to Stuart to close out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I can do the slide. Sorry. Very quickly, I did forget about this one as well. So the eRequesting block votes. So these are electronic votes. And it's a way of us grouping like issues, so we don't have to go through every single one in a meeting, because we do have 55 issues. So for us to go through 55 issues in TDG meetings will take a very long time. And so for issues that we think the co-chairs have identified as possible for an e-vote, we will put out a block vote where you can vote electronically on these. And sorry, I jumped ahead. So these e-votes will be open for 1 week. They'll generally be opened on a Thursday and will close on the following Wednesday. We'll send out an email to the TDG about these votes. And then the votes will actually come out in the next, the outcome will be presented in the next TDG call. And I'll just, if I can, very quickly show you what one of those would look like. Here's one we're preparing at the moment. It's not ready to go out yet, but on the Confluence page, here will be a block vote. These are the issues that we are voting on in this block vote. Down the bottom, you can say you're affirmative, negative, or abstain. This vote applies to all issues in this block. Or you can refer to telecom, which means I want to talk about it in the TDG. I think it needs to be talked about in TDG. If you're referring to telecom or voting negative, you need to put a comment. Otherwise, it will be classed as an abstain. If you think one of these needs to be talked about separately, you can put in the comments that you say, I want to remove this issue. I'm happy to vote on the rest, but I want this issue removed. So this will be the process for these votes. You can click through each of the items, do what we've done in this meeting today, look at the disposition, look at the description, follow the links, and then either vote as a whole on all of these. So we will be sending one of those out. Hopefully, if we get this one prepared in time out this afternoon, otherwise it'll go out next Thursday in preparation for the next meeting. And I'll just get back to
cool. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. So that draws this meeting to a close. Upcoming, we have Thursday, the 10th of October will be the eRequesting TDG and ballot for comment resolution. The following Thursday will be the same, and the 7th of November will be the same. I have put the link in the chat for the Melbourne Connectathon as well. There's a tiny URL there, so you can go and register for that now. But that does finish out this meeting for today. If there are any questions about anything that was discussed, as always, chat.fire.org. There's people there that can answer the questions surrounding any of the votes and any of the motions that were made today or anything outstanding. If there's no final comments, then we will see you all next week. Thank you very much.
And change of time for everywhere except Queensland for the next meeting.
Yes, sorry, that will be next week, won't it? So change of time for everybody except Queensland on the next meeting that will start. So that was option 2. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks.